The 30th flush. This, the 30th flush of the 21st letter and a fruit of Eskişehir prison, consists of 6 points. Just as Meyve Risalesi, the fruits of belief, was the supreme lesson of the Denizli school of Joseph, and El Hüccetü Zehra, the shining proof, was a most valuable lesson of the Afyon school of Joseph, so too this 30th flush, which expounds 6 points about the 6 divine names bearing the greatest name, was a powerful lesson of the greatest importance of the Eskişehir school of Joseph. Everyone will not immediately understand and appreciate the profound, extensive matters in the pieces about the names of ever living and self-subsistent from the greatest name, but they will not remain without a share of them either. The first point, the divine name of Most Holy. This point concerns one aspect of the divine name of Most Holy. It is appropriate that it should form an addendum to the addendum of the 30th word. In the name of God, the merciful, the compassionate. And the earth we have spread wide, and how well have we ordered it. One manifestation of the divine name of Most Holy, which is one meaning of the above verse and is a greatest name, or one of the 6 lights contained in the greatest name, became clear to me in the month of Shaban in Eskişehir prison. It demonstrated with complete clarity both the divine existence and divine unity. I saw it as follows. The universe is a vast, constant working factory, and the globe of the earth a hostel and guest house which is continually filled and emptied. Generally, factories, hostels, and guest houses which are thus used become much dirtied and soiled with filth, debris, and rubbish, and putrid matter accumulates in all parts of them. They cannot be occupied unless they are kept with care and cleaned and swept. Human beings are overwhelmed by the dirt. The factory of the universe and guest house of the earth, however, are totally pure, clean, and spotless, and completely unsoiled, untainted, and fresh. There is nothing unnecessary, nothing without benefit, not a random piece of dirt to be found. Even if there is apparently, it is quickly thrown into a transformation machine and cleaned. This means that the one who looks after this factory does so very well. Its owner is such that he sweeps and cleans and orders the vast factory, an extensive palace, as though they were small rooms. Considering the size of the huge factory, there is no dirt or rubbish remaining from its filth and debris. Indeed, its cleanliness and tidiness are remarkable. If someone does not wash himself and clean his small room for a month, they will become extremely dirty and soiled. That is to say, the cleanliness, purity, and luminosity in this palace of the world arise from a continuous, wise, and diligent cleaning. If it were not for this cleaning, sweeping, and careful tending, in 1 year all the 100,000 animal species would have been choked on the face of the earth. Also, the debris of the globes in space and the heavens, which manifest life and death, and of satellites and stars, would have smashed not only our heads and those of the other animals, but also the head of the earth itself and of our world. They would have rained down on our heads rocks the size of mountains and driven us away from our homeland in this world. However, for a long time past, if as a warning a few meteorites have fallen as a result of destruction and reconstruction in those lofty worlds, they have not broken any heads. Furthermore, the corpses of 100,000 animal species and the debris of 200,000 plant species each year on the face of the earth, resulting from the alternation and struggles of life and death, would have so utterly filthied the land and the sea that conscious creatures, rather than loving and delighting in the face of the earth, would have felt disgust and aversion at such ugliness and fled to death and non-existence. Just as a bird cleans its wings with ease and ascribe his pages, so too the wings of the aircraft of the earth, and the birds of the heavenly bodies, and the pages of the book of the universe are cleansed and made beautiful. So much so that people who do not consider the infinite beauty of the hereafter and think with belief become lovers of this cleanliness and beauty of the world. They worship it. That is to say, this palace of the world and factory of the universe display a greatest manifestation of the divine name of Most Holy, whereby it is not only the carnivorous cleaners of the seas and the eagles of the land which obey the commands proceeding from that sacred cleansing, but also its cleansing officials which gather up corpses, like worms and ants. Like the red and white blood corpuscles flowing in the body obey those sacred commands and do the cleaning in the body's cells, so does breathing purify and clean the blood. And as eyelids obey the command to clean the eye and flies to brush their wings, so the extensive atmosphere and the clouds obey it. The air blows upon the pieces of dust, and soil settles on the surface of the earth and cleans it. The sponges of the clouds sprinkle water on the garden of the earth and dampen the dust and soil. Then, so as not to dirty the sky, the air quickly collects the earth's rubbish and withdraws and hides itself with perfect orderliness. It displays the beautiful face and eye of the skies as swept and polished, all sparkling and shining. And as the stars, elements, minerals, and plants obey the command to clean, all particles and atoms obey it, they pay attention to cleanliness within the astonishing upheavals of change and transformation. They never congregate anywhere unnecessarily and get in the way. If they do become soiled, they are quickly cleaned. They are impelled by a hand of wisdom to acquire the cleanest, neatest, and most shining states and the most beautiful, pure, and subtle forms. Thus, this single act, that is, making clean, which is a single truth, is the greatest manifestation of a greatest name, the name of Most Holy, which shows itself in the maximum sphere, that is, throughout the universe. Like the sun, it shows directly to eyes that are far-seeing and broad-sighted the divine existence and unity together with the most beautiful divine names. It has been established with decisive proofs in many parts of the Risale-i Nur that the acts of ordering and order, which are a manifestation of the names of sapience and all-wise, and the act of weighing and balance, which are a manifestation of the names of justice and all just, and the act of adorning and munificence, which are a manifestation of the names of beauteous and all generous, and the act of sustaining and bestowal, which are a manifestation of the names of sustainer and most compassionate, are each a single truth and a single act. They therefore demonstrate the necessary existence and unity of a single being. In exactly the same way, the act of purifying and making clean, which is a manifestation and display of the name of Most Holy, demonstrates like the sun above the existence of the necessarily existent one, and like daylight, his unity. And as the wise acts of ordering, balancing, adorning, and making clean mentioned above point to a single maker by reason of their unity of kinds in the maximum sphere, so most of the beautiful names, indeed, the 1001 names, each have such a greatest manifestation in the maximum sphere. And the act proceeding from that manifestation points to the single unique one with clarity and decisiveness in relation to its extensiveness. The self-evident truths and single acts that illuminate the face of the universe and make it smile, such as the universal wisdom that causes all things to conform to its law and order, the comprehensive munificence that adorns all things and causes them to smile, the all-embracing mercy that makes all things pleased and happy, the universal providing of sustenance which nurtures and gives pleasure to all things, and the life and giving of life which connects each thing with all things and makes each thing benefit from, and to some extent on all things, the self-evident truths and single acts point as plainly as light points to the sun, to a single all-wise, all-generous, and all-compassionate one, a single sustainer, a single ever-living giver of life. If those hundreds of extensive acts, each of which is a clear proof of God's unity, are not attributed to the single unique one, each necessarily becomes impossible in hundreds of respects. For example, let alone such self-evident truths and single evidences as wisdom, providence, mercy, sustaining, and giving of life, if only the act of making clean is not attributed to the creator of the universe, then the following becomes necessary in the unbelieving way of the people of misguidance. Either all the creatures connected the cleansing from particles and flies to the elements and the stars would have to have the ability to know and consider the adorning, balancing, and cleansing of the vast universe, and would act accordingly, or each would have to possess the sacred attributes of the world's creator, or each would have to be present at a consultative meeting the size of the universe in order to regulate the equilibrium of the adorning and cleansing of the universe, and its incomings and outgoings, and innumerable particles, flies, and stars would have to be participants in the meeting, and so on. Hundreds of superstitious, nonsensical, and sophistical impossibilities like these would have to occur so that the universal, comprehensive, and exalted adorning, purifying, and cleansing that is to be seen and observed everywhere could come about. As for this, it is not impossible once, but 100,000 times over. If daylight and the imaginary miniature suns represented in the shining objects on the earth are not attributed to the sun, and they are not said to be the manifestation of the sun's reflection, it would be necessary for the actual sun to be present in all fragments of glass, drops of water, and snowflakes glistening on the face of the earth, and even in all particles of air, so that the universal light could exist. Thus, wisdom is a light, all-embracing mercy is a light, adorning, balancing, ordering, and cleansing are each an encompassing light. They are all the rays of the pre-eternal sun. So, see how misguidance and unbelief have entered a bog from which there is no escape. See just how idiotic is the ignorance of misguidance. Say, praise be to God for the religion of Islam in complete and perfect belief. For sure, this exalted, universal cleansing which keeps the palace of the universe clean is the manifestation and requirement of the divine name of Most Holy. Yes, just as the glorification of all creatures looks to the name of Most Holy, so does the name of Most Holy require their cleanliness. Note: we must not forget that bad qualities, false beliefs, sins, and innovation are all instances of moral and spiritual dirt. It is because of this sacred connection of cleanliness that the Hadith, cleanliness is a part of belief, deems it to be a light of belief. And the verse, indeed, God loves those who turn to Him constantly, and He loves those who keep themselves pure and clean, shows that cleanliness is a means of attracting God's love. The second point, the divine names of all just. And there is not a thing, but its sources and treasuries inexhaustible are with us, but we only send down thereof in due and ascertainable measures. One point concerning this verse, and one manifestation of the name of all just, which is the greatest name, or one of the 6 lights comprising the greatest name, like the first point, appeared to me from afar while in Eskişehir prison. In order to bring it closer to the understanding, we say the following again by means of a comparison. The universe is a palace, but it is such a palace that within it is a city that suffers the upheavals of constant destruction and reconstruction. Within the city is a country that is being continuously agitated by war and emigration. Within the country is a world which is unceasingly revolving amid death and life. But such an astonishing balance, equilibrium, and equilibration prevail in the palace, city, country, and world that it self-evidently proves that the transformations and incomings and outgoings apparent in their innumerable beings are being measured and weighed every moment on the scales of a single being who sees and supervises the whole universe. For if it had been otherwise, if causes had been free and unrestrained, which try to destroy the balance and overrun everything, with a single fish laying 1,000 eggs, and a single flower like the poppy producing 20,000 seeds, and with the onslaught and violence of change, and the elements flowing in floods, or if it had been referred to aimless, purposeless, chance, anarchic blind forces, and unconscious dark nature, the equilibrium of beings and balance of the universe would have been so utterly destroyed that within a year, indeed within a day, there would have been chaos. That is to say, the seas would have been filled with wreckage in total disorder and confusion and would have become fetid. The atmosphere would have been poisoned with noxious gases, and as for the earth, it would have turned into a refuse heap, slaughterhouse, and swamp. The world would have suffocated. Thus, everything from the cells of an animate body, the red and white corpuscles in the blood, the transformations of minute particles, and the mutual proportion and relation of the body's organs to the incomings and outgoings of the seas, the income and expenditure of springs under the earth, the birth and death of animals and plants, the destruction of autumn and the reconstruction of spring, the duties and motion of the elements and the stars, and the alternations, struggles, and clashes of death and life, light and darkness, and heat and cold are ordered and weighed with so sensitive a balance, so fine a measure, that the human mind can nowhere see any waste or futility, just as human science and philosophy observe everywhere and demonstrate the most perfect order and beautiful symmetry. Indeed, human science and philosophy are a manifestation and interpreter of that order and symmetry. So, come and consider the balance and equilibrium of the sun and its 12 planets. Does it not point as clearly as the sun to the all-glorious one who is all-just and all-powerful? Especially our ship, that is, the globe of the earth, which is one of the planets, it travels an orbit of 24,000 years in 1 year, not scattering or shaking the things stored up and stacked on its face, despite its extraordinary speed, nor throwing them off into space. If its speed had been increased or reduced just a little, it would have thrown its inhabitants off into the atmosphere and scattered them through space. And if its balance was to be destroyed for a minute or even a second, it would destroy the world. Indeed, it would clash with another body and doomsday would break forth. Especially the compassionate balance on the face of the earth of the births, deaths, livelihoods, and lives of the 400,000 plant and animal species, it shows a single just and compassionate one as clearly as light shows the sun. Especially the members, faculties, and senses of a single of the innumerable members of those species, they are related to each other with so fine a balance and equilibrium that their balance and mutual proportion show an all-wise and just maker so clearly as to be self-evident. Especially the cells and blood vessels in the bodies of animals and the corpuscles in the blood and particles in the corpuscles, they have such a fine, sensitive, and wondrous balance that it self-evidently proves that they are being nurtured and administered through the balance, law, and order of a single all-just and wise creator who holds the reins of all things, has the key to all things, for whom nothing is an obstacle to anything else, and directs all things as easily as a single thing. If someone who does not believe or deems it unlikely that the deeds of jinn and man will be weighed up on the supreme scales of justice at the last judgments, notes carefully this vast balance which he can observe in this world with his own eyes, he will surely no longer consider it unlikely. O wasteful, prodigal, wrongful, unjust, dirty, unclean, wretched man, you have not acted in accordance with the economy, cleanliness, and justice that are the principles by which the whole universe and all beings act, and are therefore in effect the object of their anger and disgust. On what do you rely that through your wrongdoing and disequilibrium, your wastefulness and uncleanliness, you make all beings angry? Yes, the universal wisdom of the universe, which is the greatest manifestation of the divine name of all wise, turns on economy and lack of waste. It commands frugality. And the total justice in the universe proceeding from the greatest manifestation of the name of all just, administers the balance of all things and enjoins justice on man. Mentioning the word balance 4 times, the verses in Surah Ar-Rahman, and the firmament has he raised high, and he has set up the balance of justice, in order that you may not transgress the balance. So establish weight with justice and fall not short in the balance. Indicate 4 degrees and 4 sorts of balance, showing its immensity and supreme importance in the universe. Yes, just as there is no wastefulness in anything, so in nothing is there true injustice or imbalance. The cleanliness and purification proceeding from the name of Most Holy cleans and makes beautiful all the beings in the universe. So long as man's dirty hand does not interfere, there is no true uncleanliness or ugliness in anything. So you may understand how basic to human life are the principles of justice, frugality, and cleanliness, which are truths of the Qur'an and Islamic principles. And know how closely connected with the universe are the injunctions of the Qur'an, having spread their firm roots everywhere, and that it is as impossible to destroy those truths as it is to destroy the universe and change its form. Is it at all possible that although hundreds of comprehensive truths, like these 3 vast lights, such as mercy, grace, and preservation, require and necessitate the resurrection of the dead and the hereafter, such powerful and all-encompassing truths as mercy, favor, justice, wisdom, frugality, and cleanliness, which govern in the universe and all beings, should be transformed into unkindness, tyranny, lack of wisdom, wastefulness, uncleanliness, and futility, by there being no hereafter and the resurrection not occurring? God forbid, 100,000 times, God forbid. Would a mercy and wisdom which compassionately preserve the rights of life of a fly violate the countless rights of life of all conscious beings and the numberless rights of numberless beings by not bringing about the resurrection? And if one may say so, would a splendid tonicality which displays infinite sensitivity and care in its mercy and compassion and justice and wisdom, and a divine sovereignty which adorns the universe with his endless wondrous arts and bounties in order to display his perfections and make himself known and loved, permit there to be no resurrection, which would reduce to nothing the value of creatures and all their perfections, and make them denied? God forbid. Such an absolute beauty clearly would not permit such absolute ugliness. Yes, the person who wants to deny the hereafter must first deny all the world and all its truths. Otherwise, the world together with all its truths will give him the lie with 100,000 tongues, proving the compounded nature of his lie. The 10th verse proves with certain evidences that the existence of the hereafter is as definite and indubitable as the existence of this world.